Welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, the podcast where we sift through the complexities of your body's inner workings, one cell at a time. I'm Ethan Foster, resident observer of all things ironically human.
And I'm Alara Skye, the person who never met a T-cell she didn't want to have a detailed conversation with. Let's just say I'm a big fan of all those microscopic guardians running around in our bloodstream. If they had a fan club, I'd be president.
This is the show where we pull back the curtain on cutting-edge health principles, toss in a dash of wit, and hope we don't lose any T-cells in the process.
They'll forgive us. T-cells are surprisingly understanding, though they are known to get a little hyperactive under certain conditions, like, say, chronic inflammation from cigarette smoke.
And that's our cue for today's topic: how cigarette smoke weakens our lung immunity and fuels chronic inflammation. To be honest, every time I hear cigarette smoke, I picture 20,000 suspicious little chemicals marching into the lungs, wearing tiny trench coats and fedoras, looking for trouble.
It's almost cartoonish to imagine, but that's pretty much the gist. Cigarette smoke contains more than 20,000 chemicals, an assortment so large it's like someone took a chemistry lab, stuffed it into a backpack, and then shook it out over your lungs. A few cameo appearances include carcinogens, toxins like nicotine, and something called acrolein. It's the toxic gift that keeps on giving.
If by gift you mean a set of black lung accessories, sure, it's a gift. But those 20,000 chemicals aren't content with just hanging out. They actively weaken our immune cells, especially in the lungs. That means they reduce the function of T cells and macrophages, our microscopic frontline defenders.
Right. Think of macrophages like the janitors who mop up pathogens. But if you flood their workspace with cigarette smoke, you've basically told them, great news, your mop is now only half functional and the floor is covered in extra sticky grime. They just can't clean efficiently. Over time, this leads to a system vulnerable to infections, chronic inflammation, and increased cancer risk.
That sets the stage for trouble. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, lurks around the corner. Lung cancer sees an opening too. Essentially, your defenses are compromised. The result is a lot of coughing, breathlessness, fatigue, and a chronic state of, why can't I catch my breath, that eventually can become life-threatening.
And if that's not bleak enough, let's bring children into the picture. Secondhand smoke is just as villainous. It turns out that kids get the brunt of it. Their lung development can be impaired, and they're more likely to develop asthma and respiratory infections. Imagine them having to battle these issues while also trying to learn the multiplication table. It's just not fair.
So we've painted a grim picture, but it's reality. The lungs become a playground for harmful bacteria and viruses, and the immune system stands there wondering where all its good tools went. Let's break it down further. We have this neat category of immune cells called mate cells, mucosal-associated invariant T cells. They're like special ops for the lungs.
Indeed, these mate cells rely on something called the MR1 receptor to detect Th treats. Normally, MR1 presents bacterial metabolites to the MAIT cells, and the MAIT cells go, aha, a bad guy. Then they spring into action. But cigarette smoke tosses a wrench in that beautiful mechanism, basically blinding the mate cells.
It's the old trick of shining a flashlight in someone's eyes, so they can't see what's happening. Meanwhile, the pathogens tiptoe in. That's how infections flourish and inflammation becomes chronic.
Chronic inflammation is like your body's never-ending alarm system. A little inflammation is normal. It helps you heal from injuries. But chronic inflammation is a horror movie that never ends. Everything from COPD to lung cancer can spark up because the inflammation never cools down.
And it isn't just the mate cells. Research shows that cigarette smoke also whacks macrophages, neutrophils, T lymphocytes, basically the entire immune party. Neutrophils get overactive, releasing destructive enzymes that chew up healthy tissues. Macrophages, usually the good guys, become dysfunctional and start releasing inflammatory signals. It's like they're saying, we forgot how to do our job, so let's just set off more alarms.
Right. And T cells, which are supposed to target infected or cancerous cells, can become hyperactive in some places while underactive in others. You get reduced regulatory T cells, TREGs, which are crucial for keeping inflammation in check. Without TREGs, it's all fireworks, all the time. Meanwhile, if you do develop a tumor, the environment is so messed up that the tumor can hide or avoid detection.
It's the immune equivalent of trying to find a quiet place to read in the middle of a rock concert. There's just too much chaos. And speaking of chaos, let's not forget reactive oxygen species, or ROS, those nasty molecules that cause oxidative stress.
Yes, the ROS situation. Smoking basically dumps a high concentration of ROS into your body. Now, your body does have antioxidants, but it's like trying to stop a flood with a single sandbag. Oxidative stress tears through cells, causing more immune suppression. It's a self-perpetuating loop of doom. More damage, more inflammation, more vulnerability.
So, if you think being a smoker is an individual choice, it's not just about you. Secondhand smoke affects kids, relatives, friends, and even casual bystanders waiting at the bus stop. There's no such thing as a harmless whiff.
Let's pivot to something more uplifting. We've had enough gloom and doom. There are ways to protect your immune system from the havoc of cigarette smoke. The first step, obviously, is to avoid the smoke in the first place. Easier said than done for someone who's already hooked, but it's still the cornerstone.
Right? Quitting smoking is crucial. If you want your immune system to stand a chance, you've got to remove the main perpetrator. Otherwise, it's like pouring water into a bucket with a giant hole at the bottom. No matter how many helpful supplements or diets you try, you're losing the battle if you keep the smoke around.
Now, if you do manage to quit, or if you've already been a secondhand victim, you can support your immune system with a nutrient-rich diet. We're talking fruits and veggies loaded with vitamin C and E, plus some zinc thrown in. Vitamin C is that plucky superhero battling oxidative stress. Vitamin E helps with tissue repair and keeps those cell membranes strong.
Don't forget to ditch processed foods and seed oils. They're loaded with linoleic acid, which can worsen inflammation and disrupt cellular health. It's like handing a match to a pyromaniac. Not a good combo when your body is already on the edge.
Indeed. And for physical activity, a simple daily walk can boost immune function, ease stress, and help lungs recover. Sometimes people think they need to run marathons to be healthy. But let's start small. Daily movement helps the immune system by increasing circulation, which helps immune cells get where they need to go.
It also helps with quitting smoking, keeps you busy, reduces cravings, and floods you with endorphins that feel a lot better than a nicotine fix, so I'm told.
And the next piece is sunlight. Nothing new there, but so many of us skip it because we're glued to screens all day. Sunlight helps your body make vitamin D, which is important for many immune processes. Also, sunlight can lift your mood. A little bit of happiness can go a long way toward handling stress.
Stress is a sneaky factor here. High stress weakens your immune defenses. And ironically, many smokers use cigarettes to manage stress, not realizing they're setting themselves up for a chain reaction of even more stress on their bodies at the cellular level.
Exactly. Practices like mindfulness, meditation, or even just taking a quiet walk in nature can reduce stress hormones. A calmer body is a stronger body, and a stronger body is better at battling all that leftover damage from smoke.
Let's recap in a comedic bullet list, if you will. 1. Don't smoke. 2. If you do smoke, quit. 3. If you don't smoke, avoid secondhand smoke like it's an unsolicited telemarketing call. 4. Pack your plate with fresh, colorful foods. 5. Move daily. Your lungs and your sense of humor will thank you. 6. Get some sunshine. In moderation, of course, just not the midday scorching that'll fry you like a piece of bacon.
And watch out for that linoleic acid in seed oils. If you've been feasting on French fries and then sunbathing at high noon, you might be inviting inflammation to pull up a chair and stay a while. Fix the diet first, get rid of those seed oils, then enjoy the sunshine responsibly.
Now, all this begs the question, how does one navigate a world where cigarettes are sold everywhere and secondhand smoke is still a thing? You can't exactly walk around with a giant fan strapped to your back.
Giant fans would be a bold fashion choice, though. But yes, it requires some conscious planning. You might have to set boundaries in social situations. Maybe your friends want to hang out in a smoky bar, but that doesn't mean you have to breathe in the toxins. Suggest an outdoor cafe with a no-smoking policy. Or politely mention that your T cells have asked for a day off from chemical warfare.
And if you're the smoker, it can feel overwhelming to think about quitting. But there are tools like emotional freedom techniques, EFT, which can help manage the stress and cravings. The key is to remember that every day you're not inhaling that smoke, your body's defense system is getting stronger.
The resilience of the human body is impressive. Once you remove the daily onslaught of toxins, your immune system starts to rebound. It's almost like your T cells throw a little welcome back party, reactivating their normal patrol routines. Macrophages dust off their metaphorical mops, and your tissues begin to heal.
That's the inspiring side of the story. It's never too late to change course. Even if someone has been smoking for decades, improvements can still happen. Maybe not overnight, but the body is willing to try if you give it a chance.
Absolutely. And let's not neglect the mental and emotional aspects. Smoking can be tied to habits, routines, or even identity. So, as you release it, you might discover a whole new perspective on health, self-care, and how you relate to stress.
Now, let's pivot to the bigger picture. Smoking doesn't just affect your immune system in isolation. It's tied to cardiovascular issues, cancers of all sorts, and it can even hamper your social life. Nobody wants to be the person hacking up a lung in a quiet restaurant.
Right. There's also that small detail of smelling like an ashtray. Not the fragrance most people go for on a first date. But jokes aside, the price we pay for smoking goes way beyond money spent on cigarettes. It's a quality of life issue, especially when chronic inflammation sets in.
Chronic inflammation is connected to diseases you might not even associate with smoking, like rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis. It's that broad. That's why it's vital to break the cycle. If your immune system is busy fighting off repeated smoke-related damage, it can't handle other threats efficiently.
And while the body is stuck in that loop, tumors can sneak under the radar. That's why smokers are at a higher risk for lung cancer, among other cancers. The immune system just isn't on its A game.
Now some folks might ask, is vaping better? The short answer, no. it still contains chemicals, plus nicotine that keeps you addicted. It's not the magical harm-free alternative some people claim.
Right. That's like switching from a deep-fried donut to a slightly less deep-fried donut and calling it health food. It's just not the answer. You're still pouring toxic substances into your system.
Let's also mention that quitting can feel tough, but it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Each smoke-free day is a victory, and each victory helps your T cells see the light again.
Or see the MR1 receptor again, to be more precise. And once your T cells are functioning properly, they can fend off infections more effectively, keep inflammation in check, and patrol for rogue cells before they turn cancerous.
All this underscores why, Doctor. Mercola's been so passionate about smoking cessation and immune health. He's shining a light on the direct link between toxins in smoke and the weakening of our natural defenses.
Which leads us to the most optimistic part. You can bounce back. Sure, it might take time, but the body's capacity to heal is amazing. That's why focusing on nutrient-rich foods, daily movement, and mindful living pays big dividends.
Imagine a future where you're not coughing every morning, not worrying about that ominous spot on your lung x-ray, and not feeling short of breath, climbing a flight of stairs. That's the payoff.
And for those non-smokers out there, being aware is crucial too. Don't subject yourself or your kids to secondhand smoke. It's not a trivial nuisance. Those chemicals don't check ID at the door. They'll harm anyone who inhales them.
Ultimately, the question is, do we want to invest in a life where our immune systems have the best shot at working properly, or do we keep rolling the dice with 20,000 chemical intruders?
I'm guessing most people would prefer healthy lungs over infiltration by an army of toxic compounds. But sometimes it takes a wake-up call. If you're listening and need that nudge, maybe this is it.
So, to wrap up, the main takeaways. Smoking introduces an enormous chemical load that disrupts immune cells, fosters chronic inflammation, and opens the door to serious diseases. Quit smoking if you can. Stay away from secondhand smoke. Load up on antioxidant-rich foods. Get regular movement. Soak up some sun in a smart way. And manage stress so your immune system can do its thing.
Spoken like a man who appreciates a functioning alveolus. By following these steps, you're essentially giving your lungs a new lease on life and reintroducing your T cells to their job descriptions. They've been missing out.
And if any T cells are tuning in, we salute you. Keep up the good fight. Meanwhile, to our human listeners, thank you for joining us today on Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We hope you've learned just enough to scare you straight, while still having a chuckle at life's absurdities.
Remember, your body is on your side, but it can only do so much if you're bombarding it with toxins. Give it the break it deserves, and let those immune cells shine. They're basically your own personal, microscopic superhero squad.
That's the perfect image to leave everyone with. Thanks for listening to our deep dive on how cigarette smoke undercuts immunity. Stay informed, stay inspired, and stay smoke-free whenever possible. Until next time, I'm Ethan Foster.
And I'm Alara Sky, reminding you that if your T cells had a dating profile, it would read, just looking for a little less inflammation and a lot more fresh air. Here's to giving them exactly that. See you next time on Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom.